G'day, my name's Alan Teskey. My main aim in beekeeping is to experiment and to obtain as much honey from the hives as possible. Making all my own equipment, I get a lot of joy out of it, and also it saves me a humongous amount of money, and it's the gear that I'm more than happy with, and it works. All edges of the lids are sanded and made smooth. The actual cost of these lids to make without my time is very minimal. The way that I set up all my equipment, it doesn't take very long to make the gear that I have programmed for the day. I sand all my corners so that when they're painted they have no sharp edges and they do not crack. I've been painting this way for the last just on 40 years and have not had a problem. Before that I was using enamel paints and all the joints were cracking. This roller has been sealed up with a plastic bag for 2.5 weeks now, and I'm getting it out to paint this lid. Paint in the tin that hasn't been used for a while will get a watery cover on top, so it must be stirred efficiently, otherwise you won't get a full-bodied paint on your materials. I use the roller to get off the excess paint from the mixing stick. I use paint straight out of the tin. I don't put it into a tray, and the 4-inch roller that I use, it has quite a lot of paint on it, and probably 2 coats of the roller would be the equivalent of 3 coats of brush coats. I just roll the paint until I take out all the runs. That is why it lasts a lot longer out in the field. It's only been about half an hour since I painted this and everything is dry. So I can now put the second coat on it. The second coat is now being applied a couple of hours after the first coat, and then it will be left until a couple of days time for it to harden. To clean the excess paint off my hands, I use general purpose thinners. I found that's the only material that will dissolve and remove the paint. After the paint is removed, I use a liquid soap just to wash my hands. That is 1/2 of the lid that's had the 2 coats of weather shield, and I'll leave it for the paint to harden so I can tip it upside down and paint the inside of the lid. I used a 15-year guarantee paint with 3 coats, and there is no need for undercoat or primer, and I get from 15 years upwards by painting the correct way with all my gear. I have never used a tray. I always use the roller to get the paint on the roller straight out of the tin. It saves a lot of cleaning up, and it's just as easy. The amount of paint I put on the roller is fairly thick, and it is rolled fairly thick onto all my gear, without runs, which I think helps to make it last a very long time. The vent depths that are made are sufficient for the roller to roll the paint into all the openings. The beauty about the 4-inch Tom Thumb roller is that it has a cover on the end, and you can get into all your nooks and crannies without having to use a brush. I haven't used a brush in probably over 30 years. It just makes that much easier and simpler. The final coat on the extra lids. All that has to be done now is fit the aluminium fly wire for the vents. For fixing the fly wire vents, all you need is a stapling gun, some staples and some aluminium fly wire. The staples that I use are 6mm deep. They hold the mesh in position, and if ever you've got to take them out, they are quite easy to remove. By having the mesh on the outside, it is very seldom that I have them sealed up with propolis. They will seal the inside of the lids, but not the mesh. Even the smallest pieces can be used. The completed new gear with the spacers, while the paint hardens so that they don't stick together. All my gear is now complete for the new season.